Most people measure wealth by what they can see. The car in the driveway, the watch on a wrist, the zip code someone posts from. But real wealth is the opposite of visible. It's the gap between what you earn and what disappears. And in 2026, that gap is harder to protect than ever. AI is compressing salaries across industries. Interest rates are still elevated. The old playbook, get a degree, get a job, buy a house, wait 40 years, is dead. The wealthiest people I've studied don't optimize for income. They optimize for invisible infrastructure, systems that operate in the background, quietly compounding while everyone else optimizes for appearances. I'm going to give you 7 of those habits. Not theory, not mindset fluff. By the end, you'll have one specific move to execute today. A protocol you can run before the video ends. Habit 1. Burn rate architecture. Your burn rate is the only number that matters, and almost nobody tracks it. They know their salary down to the dollar, but have no idea what leaves their account each month. That's not an accident. The system is designed to make spending frictionless and tracking painful. This isn't budgeting. Budgeting fails because it relies on willpower, and willpower is a depletable resource that resets to 0 every night. Architecture means designing a system where money can't leak. You separate your operating account from your wealth account. You automate the split before you ever see the number. The money that hits your checking account is what you're allowed to spend. The rest already left the building. The 2026 shift makes this urgent. With AI compression hitting white-collar salaries, the person with the lower burn rate has more options, more leverage, more time to wait for asymmetric bets to pay off. Most people optimize for income and let expenses float up to match. The quiet wealthy do the reverse. They set a fixed burn ceiling and force income to exceed it by design. Here's the move. Open a second account today. Redirect 15% of your next deposit before it hits checking. Don't think about it. Don't calculate whether you can afford it. Execute. Habit 2. The ownership allocation. Once the leak stops, the next question is what the surplus actually does. Every dollar you don't spend has a job, and most people give it the wrong one. It sits in checking, losing value to inflation, doing nothing. The ownership allocation means every dollar eventually becomes an owner, not a consumer. Not someday, not when you have enough, but now. 2026 makes this easier than ever. Fractional ownership in real estate, creator equity deals, tokenized real-world assets, micro private equity funds that used to require accredited investor status and a phone call with a banker. The barriers are gone. The habit is simple. Before any purchase above a threshold you set, ask whether the same dollar could own something instead. Not deprivation. Redirection. The quiet wealthy don't have more discipline than you. They have a different default setting. Their money goes to ownership automatically. Compounding works in silence. Nobody sees the ownership stake growing. There's no social reward for it. Until one day, it's too large to hide. The move? Take one recurring expense this week, a subscription, a habit, something you won't miss, and redirect that exact dollar amount into an ownership asset. Even if it's $50. The amount doesn't matter. The wiring change matters. Habit 3. Information diet architecture. But ownership requires knowing what to own. And that requires something most people neglect completely. Your financial decisions are only as good as the information you consume. Most people consume the same news headlines, the same Twitter threads, the same Reddit posts as everyone else, and then they expect different results. That's not how asymmetry works. The quiet wealthy build information filters that create an edge. They read earnings call transcripts instead of headlines. They read 10K filings instead of hot takes. They go to the source. And in 2026, this asymmetry is getting more valuable, not less. The AI flood is drowning the internet in synthetic content. The signal-to-noise ratio is collapsing. The person who reads primary sources has an advantage that compounds every quarter. The habit: replace 1 hour of algorithmic feed consumption with 1 hour of primary source study per week. Not summaries, not someone else's analysis. the actual document. Within 90 days, you'll see opportunities nobody around you sees because they're all looking at the same surface. The move. Pick one company you're interested in. Pull their last 10K. Read the risk factors section. That's where the real story lives. Not the earnings press release. The risk factors. Habit 4. The anti-network. What you consume isn't just information. It's also the people around you. Most networking advice tells you to add people. Expand your circle. Collect contacts. The quiet wealthy do the opposite. They systematically remove. Every person in your life has a financial gravity. They pull your spending, your thinking, your ambition toward their level. If your 5 closest relationships normalize debt, normalize spending everything that comes in, normalize mediocrity, you will drift toward that mean. It's not a character flaw. It's physics. The habit: audit your 5 closest relationships and calculate what each one costs you. Not just in money, in attention, in standards, in time, in what you stop believing is possible. 2026 gives you an advantage here. Remote work and digital communities mean you can curate your circle with surgical precision. You're not stuck with whoever happens to live in your zip code. Removing one person who normalizes spending or low standards does more for your wealth than adding 10 mentors. Subtraction beats addition every time. The move: identify one person whose financial gravity is pulling you down and create distance this week. No confrontation, no announcement, just less access, less influence, less gravity. Habit 5. Tax velocity design. Once your circle is clean, you can start moving money through structures that multiply it. This isn't tax evasion, it's tax velocity. How fast your money moves through tax-advantaged vehicles before it ever hits consumption. Most people think about taxes once a year, in April, when it's already too late. The quiet wealthy think about them with every transaction, every income event, every investment decision. The 2026 structures are already built. Solo 401ks, health savings accounts, 1031 exchanges for real estate, opportunity zone funds, qualified small business stock. These aren't loopholes. They're deliberate policy incentives, and not using them is volunteering for a higher tax bracket. The habit is a single filter you run before any investment or income event. Is there a tax-advantaged wrapper for this? That's it. One question. The difference between a 25% effective tax rate and a 12% rate compounded over 20 years isn't marginal. It's the difference between rich and not. You don't need a CPA to start. You need the reflex to ask the question before the money lands. Once it hits your checking account, the wrapper option disappears. The move. Look at your last investment or side income deposit. Spend 10 minutes researching whether it could have gone through a tax-advantaged vehicle. Don't fix it yet. Just find out. Habit 6. The status delay protocol. But tax efficiency means nothing if you keep resetting your lifestyle every time income ticks up. Status spending is the single biggest wealth killer among high earners. And it's almost never about the thing itself. It's about the signal. The protocol is simple. Every status purchase gets delayed by 12 months. Not denied. Delayed. If you still want the watch, the car, the apartment upgrade after a full year, buy it. But the data says you won't. Status desire is almost always temporary. It's triggered by comparison, amplified by whatever the algorithm just showed you, and it fades within weeks. You're not suppressing a permanent need. You're waiting out a temporary impulse. 2026 makes this harder because algorithmic feeds are optimized to show you what your peers just bought. Every scroll is a comparison trap, engineered to convert envy into a transaction. The quiet wealthy understand something counterintuitive. Looking rich and being rich are inversely correlated in the accumulation phase. Every dollar not spent on signaling is a dollar that compounds. And the years when compounding does its heaviest lifting are the same years most people are bleeding money on visible consumption. The move: take the next status purchase you're considering. Write it down with today's date. Set a calendar reminder for 12 months from now. That's it. You haven't said no, you've just said not yet. Habit 7. Asymmetric skill stacking. Even with all these systems in place, there's one habit that multiplies everything else. Most people try to get 10% better at one thing. They grind for marginal improvement. The quiet, wealthy stack skills where 1% better means 1,000% more output. Asymmetric skills for 2026. AI prompting, negotiation, sales, capital allocation, storytelling. These have non-linear payout curves. A small edge produces massive returns because the competition is clustered at zero. The habit is 30 minutes per day of deliberate practice, not passive learning, not watching videos about the skill, not reading threads about the skill, doing the thing with feedback, writing prompts and testing outputs, negotiating small deals, telling stories and recording yourself. Within 6 months, you'll be in the top 5% of that skill because almost nobody does deliberate practice. Almost nobody. The wealthiest people I know have 3 or 4 of these stacked, and the combination is impossible to compete with. You can outwork someone who's better at one thing. You can't outwork someone who's good at 5 things that compound together. The move. Pick one skill from the list. Block 30 minutes tomorrow morning. Do the actual thing, not research about the thing. Start before you feel ready. Conclusion. 7 habits. 7 moves. Most people will watch this and do nothing. The algorithm will serve them another video in 30 seconds, and the moment will pass. The difference between knowing and doing is the only gap that matters. It's the gap that separates everyone who stays exactly where they are from everyone who doesn't. Your one move. Pick the habit that made you most uncomfortable. That's the one with the highest leverage for you. Not the easiest one. The one that stung a little when you heard it. Implement it today. Not tomorrow. Not after you figure out the rest. Track one number for 30 days. Burn rate. Ownership percentage. Information hours. Network cost. Tax velocity. Delayed purchases. Skill practice minutes. One number. 30 days. That's the protocol. The quiet wealthy aren't smarter or luckier. They just built invisible systems and let them run while everyone else optimized for visible results. Open that second account. Pull that 10K. Block that 30 minutes. Whatever your move is, execute it before the video ends.